That's an interesting question because I originally didn't start off as a transportation designer.
Welcome to Explore Škoda podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the facelift of Škoda Scala and Kamiq. And my guest today is Caroline. Caroline, I tried to get the proper title or your role in the company or in the design team, but I can't really say that. Can you please explain what you work on in Škoda?
I'm working as a color and trim designer in Škoda Design, or you can also say CMF, color, material, finish. So I'm concerned with all surface, color, development, structures, textiles, everything that you basically see inside and outside of the car.
So on these facelifted models, did you work on both the inside or outside?
On the facelifts, in this case, I have more worked on the inside, was more concerned with seat and decors.
Okay, so what was, in general, what's the biggest difference between the previous generation and this new facelifted one?
I'm sure the biggest obvious changes were done on the exterior, but I'm also very proud of the changes we did in the interior because we did a big technology change on the dashboard decors. On the previous models, we had like a big foil decor, and now this time we worked with real materials, textiles, PVC. You can see the difference when you sit in the car.
All right. How many people work on the facelift of both cars, I guess? How many teams? How does it work?
Oh, it's really difficult to say because every one of us has like a different specialty. We have one colleague who's working on exterior colors. We have somebody, my colleague, she's working on the grains, so everything which is plastic but nicely grained. Then we have colleague who is like mainly working with microfiber. We have some new microfiber surfaces in the car. And then we have a few colleagues who are working in textile development. And this is only colleagues who are working in color and trim. So I'm not speaking about all the other interior and exterior designers which are working on the car. And also our engineering colleagues. Yeah. So there's a big team behind even, let's say, only facelift.
So if I decide to facelift a car, what in general is the process? What do I have to do to change the design of the car mid-cycle, I guess?
Yeah, so there is a team. Of course, they are calculating and checking, and they are deciding which parts of the car have to be reworked and which parts of the car can be reworked. There is an amount of changes which you don't really see. They are like technically influenced or inspired, and then there are also changes in the shape and in the colors and in the materials. Of course, that's a question of taste, fashion, aesthetic, zeitgeist. So that's not always completely up to design. We get this information, can it be a small change scope? Is it a bigger change scope? But this is being prepared by somebody in Škoda, by a team department, and then we're getting like a kickoff meeting. We get all the necessary info, and then we start to work on these things.
So designers usually just get like a set of, I don't know, maybe changes that maybe the, marketing or some other teams would like to make, and then you start from there? Or is there something that you come up with, or maybe even like the customers come up with, what they like or don't like about the car? Maybe that can be implemented in the new version.
We get quite a good feedback from the marketing colleagues, what the customers liked on the current and previous models and what they didn't like so much, and where we can adjust maybe a little bit in the future. Then there's also changes which are coming from technology, where we say maybe that's a change we can do. Yeah, that's not costing so much money, but will bring big value to the customer. And this is coming together from design and engineering. And so it's different type of areas where the change idea scope is coming from.
Is there like a one big team that works on the facelift, or is there like multiple separate teams that perhaps work on interior and exterior and technology and whatnot?
Usually in design, the team which was concerned with the base project would also be working on the facelift because they have all the details. They know the limits, technological limits, and they know what else could be brought to the project to, enhance it a bit. So usually it's like that if you have the base knowledge, you also...
And in terms of the design, is there like a separate team for interior and exterior?
Yes, definitely. So we have colleagues who are only concerned with exterior design. Then there's a big team which is only interior design. And then you have the color and trim materials designer. And we also have colleagues who are concerned with HMI mainly. Yeah, and then we have modelers and people who support us in our digital modeling processes.
So how does the cooperation work in between teams? Because the customer sees the final product, which is like one thing, but you obviously work on it separately on different parts.
Yeah, kind of. So we're like sitting in different offices, but not too far from each other. So it's just like a 2-minute, 3-minute stroll away. So you can always like have a coffee with them, which is good, improving the things. But we are also having like different starting points. For Scala and Kamiq PA, for example, there were only shape and architectural wise on the interior. Not so many changes, you see it. We mainly changed the materials. So these colleagues are not involved into the PA process then. Yeah, but the exterior colleagues, of course, did a big job. Yeah, so they were concerned in it. And they have a different starting point. They start a little bit earlier in the process. And then after probably 6 months, also the color and trim is starting to work on the project.
Okay, so the work starts with the exterior.
Yeah, usually, yes.
Okay. And then you guys move in with the interior and maybe materials. And then I guess you have to go back and forth, right?
We try to make it a quite forward-moving process, but of course you cannot avoid to go in loops. Then you have an idea and you try to implement it, and you see that it's not working for many type of reasons, and then you have to go back to the start and try to find some new way to solve the problem.
Do you sometimes argue with your colleagues? Maybe you as an interior designer on these models, you like some feature or some idea more, but it means that the exterior has to be changed, I guess.
We're not arguing so much like interior-exterior related because there's a package and the dimensions are given, so we're not colliding there too much.
Oh, so you're fitting it inside of a given size and
exactly.
Shape and
but
stuff.
When you see the shapes of the interior, depending on the complexity, like how it's distorted, if it's angled, if it's moving a lot, this is limiting sometimes the possibilities of applying different materials there. So you really have to check what's the dimension, how complex is the part, can we apply some textile there, or can it only be a paint? And because the textile will not do the job, it's not elastic enough, or it will move in weird ways. So there's a conflict potential in these areas. Yeah, definitely.
And how long does it take in general, from beginning idea to final product in terms of facelifts?
Facelift is a bit shorter in time because we know roughly what we're working on. We have to finish all our color and trim developments, let's say 2 years roughly before SOP. And we're starting 1 year ahead of that. Yeah, so we're starting the material development. Then we're having a check. We're checking the costs, the look, technical feasibility. And after that, we're having a second period of time where we can do one more rework. And then it goes for final decision. It's called our concept decision.
I see. So in terms of interior, did you work on both models separately? Or do you have some maybe design ideas or changes for facelift that apply for both models?
So the cars are sharing the dashboard and the seats, and we worked on them parallelly, of course, because they are so closely connected from the interior point of view, which was my main focus. So this runs parallel, yeah.
In these facelifted models, there has been use of recycled materials. Is that first for these models, or in general first for Škoda, or how does it work?
It's not first for Škoda. For sure, it's first for Scala and Kamiq. We have, there's different ways how to approach sustainability and recycling. First way is to reuse materials and plastics. And then the second way is you can possibly reduce the amount of plastics and replace by some other type of fiber, for example. And then, of course, the third idea behind sustainability is to use the products as long as possible and to build quality products. I would say these are, let's say, the three pillars we're trying and driving. And for Scala and Kamiq, we implemented recycled plastics on the seat textiles. And our great colleagues from the construction side, they have developed a hemp fiber press parts in the door inserts, so you're replacing basically the plastics with it. As you cannot see them. It's like a B surface. On top is the recycled plastic. Okay. But behind the shape is made from the hemp fiber.
Oh, so it's not really visible for
you cannot see it, but you cannot always only put.
But it's there.
Sustainability on the surface, exactly. Yeah, okay. Exactly. Yeah.
So why do you even go into recycled materials? Is it more of maybe a trend in the automobile industry, or is it maybe something that the customers now demand?
I'm working now almost 10 years in automotive industry, and I've been working for a textile supplier before I've been starting to work for Škoda. And these ideas of having recycled textiles, this is already for a long, long time in this industry. And people have been working on it already for quite a long time. But automotive industry is quite slow in adapting these, or has been slow in the past to adopt these sustainable measures. And now definitely is the time, where the mindset and also demand from the customer is there to implement these sustainable materials. Yeah, so it's it's combination of something that is available and ready for implementation, because we still have to fulfill all these quality standards that we're used to in the past, but also the mindset from the people is there, to implement it. That's something important.
Is there some difference in working with typical plastic or typical car material as opposed to maybe working with a recycled material? Maybe does it take longer to I don't know, design, I guess, or something like that?
In the best case, and that's our approach, there is none. There is no visible difference. Sometimes we are starting and developing in conventional plastic. And when we know what we aesthetically want to do, we are, let's say, doing translation step into the recycled plastic material. And there's visually no difference. And also these materials don't have difference in the testing parameters. So they're behaving the same way like the regular plastic. Yeah. So with this recycled plastic, you even have the advantage that compared to a wool, for example, which can be really critical on light fastness, you are having the same quality characteristics compared to regular plastic. And a regular plastic is not a bad material. It's really long life material. Yeah. So you're also approaching this quality factor or this long live factor to keep products sustainable.
So you're trying to replace the typical material or typical parts with something that's more, I guess, sustainable or maybe reused, but to maintain the quality and the, I guess, longevity and stuff like that.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you're building something which is less durable, you're not being sustainable either. Yeah, so you have to fulfill all these parameters. Yeah.
What about the design? Are there some differences in terms of design? Something that maybe, I don't know, maybe the recycled material sometimes can allow you for like a bolder design, or to do something, I guess, more challenging or different? Or is it like that? Or
Not so much, but we saw that with implementation of more recycled materials, there is a different aesthetic. You have this recycling aesthetics. People are getting used to that a piece of plastic, for example, is not only consisting of one material and one type of color anymore, but there can be really lots of freckles. You can see all the parts, all the colorful old parts, which had been or which were part of this in the past. Yeah, so there's a different aesthetical movement development for the surfaces. So it's really interesting to see how this is also changing. It's not necessary to change the optic, but these new technologies, they want to be expressed, and they're changing the perception. Yeah, this would have been something maybe disliked in the past, but today you can see it's something fresh, new, something which people really like. Yeah.
But I guess if you have these freckles, or maybe, I don't know, it looks like a mesh textile thing with maybe different colors, does it always come that way? Or does it, sometimes, what I mean is, does it always come in the way visually that you like, or is it always different and you just have to work with it?
It's depending. Sometimes you have material where it's coming in a way which you wouldn't like to implement like this. And then you have to think if there is a way how to just slightly change that, not change it completely, because then very often you're losing the good characteristics, but to just slightly change it or combine it a bit different to make it look attractive again. Yeah, so you have to put more thought into these materials when there is a limitation. But usually, especially on the plastics, there's only little limitation. Yeah, and we really like to play with these different effects from the recycled materials.
So what kinds of materials are we talking about? Because you mentioned hemp and recycled plastic. What else can be used?
This is something that we're working on for the future projects.
Okay.
But you can do a lot in these plastic parts. The vast majority of the interior is just plastic. Yeah. Only the seat and the decor at the moment is covered in textile, and everything else is not. Yeah. And on these parts, you can do really nice things. Yeah.
But you mentioned hemp, you mentioned wool. Those are all sustainable, probably.
Yeah, the wool, of course, is animal derived, so you have to be careful with that. In a way, it's a luxurious product. And this we implemented on the Enyaq. It's not there on Scala Kamiq. Yeah, so everything is, or the textile seats are vegan.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was the customer response on maybe the previous models? Was there something that surprised you?
When we introduced the Enyaq with the new design selections, for example, we were a little bit surprised by the good feedback that we got for implementation of the new materials, because Enyaq is one car where we started implementing recycled surface materials and also the wool mix material, and there was really good feedback from the customer. So this was, let's say, our approval, our thumbs up to keep working in this direction. And ever since also we have the support from all our construction colleagues and to go forward in introducing new materials.
So is that going to be something that you're going to be using in more models and even higher end models? Because I think Enyaq is a higher end model, right?
Yeah, definitely. So we're trying to keep, this modern solid look. And we know that we also have a specific type of customer for the higher end cars. We do not want to make it too funky for these, but we still want to keep the good, sustainable approach, like a simply clever approach, which also contains thinking of the nature.
Well, we haven't really tested the facelifted cars yet. We're going to be doing that this afternoon. But when we come to the cars, and when I sit inside of the cars, what should I focus on? What are the major changes in between models?
Yeah, so you have this big decor part in front of you, which is covered with textile or PVC or a microfiber material. From technology point of view, this was quite demanding to develop because the material has to survive this back injection process, which is quite hot and lots of pressure. So we had to really try and look which materials are working for this area. And we could only do a small amount of changes on the existing tool because otherwise you have to build completely new tool. Yeah, and this we didn't want. Mm-hmm. So we were trying to keep the changes minimal, but like really with a good good impression or a big visibility for the customer. So you can check these parts. I think they became quite nice. Yeah, and then you can also try to check out if you can see the differences on the door insert with the hemp fiber.
Yeah, I'll try
Unfortunately, hidden ones, yeah. Yeah. And then what is not really visible as well, but it's there is the recycled carpet material. Uh-huh. So since few years already, we have not been like really communicating on this, but the flooring material is recycled 100% already. For quite some time. So we're trying to...
So there will be all the carpets? Or the carpet mats?
Yeah, the carpet mats are recycled already.
Right. Mm-hmm. So what about the exterior? When I stand next to a car, next to Scala or Kamiq, what should I focus on? What changes should I focus on?
There were big changes on the grille and front and rear portion. The scope of the facelift is rather small. It's not the big scope facelift, but nevertheless, my colleagues managed to make like really nice changes. The Scala is more tweaked into sporty version, inspired by the RS concept, and the Kamiq is rather growing into SUV. Yeah, it's more in the mature SUV version. So when you compare them to the base project, these differences you can notice. Yeah.
So those would be headlights, I guess, and was there some change in terms of like shapes or something?
They got narrowed a bit, just to make them even a bit more sporty, and they added also the fog lights. We have some update on the rear lights. So let's say lighting as a big safety feature, there was a big focus on.
The headlights now feature the LED matrix technology. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, basically, as a driver, you need to always have all the information you can get from your surrounding, and the matrix light is allowing you to have the most best lighting situation without disturbing all the drivers around you. So it's lighting out the areas where you need like clear visibility, but it's like reducing on the parts where you have a car coming. Or you're driving behind one car, you don't want to blind those people, but you want to have all the information. And the matrix light is really giving you the best
right.
sight.
But I assume that this technology has been implemented in like maybe higher end models, previous models, and this is new for Scala and Kamiq.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely new for Scala and Kamiq, and colleagues have implemented many of the high-end assistancy features, and especially also these lights to the Scala Kamiq now.
Right. Is it how?
So it's a real upgrade.
Right. Is it? Does it always work like that? Do you always like develop some new kind of technology or feature that's usually first implemented in like the higher end model, and then it trickles down to like a lower end model, or how does it work?
I think that's normal development process and also evolution of car. So you are always starting to implement the newest features on high-end models, and then these prices during the time for high-end technology equipment, they also slowly drop, and then we are able to implement them also in the smaller cars, and give all these advantages to small car customers. Yeah, safety is important features for all the drivers.
What kind of safety features are there in Scala that has been, I don't know, facelifted or changed?
So there were also implemented assistancy features like the lane assistant and adaptive lane assistant, which would also work during a road construction. So there's also like radar features on the front and rear, which allow you, just to see object in time or to be warned when a pedestrian is trying to cross the street. And So you just have to put your seatbelt on, and
right.
The rest the car is doing.
Yeah, but the technology has been pretty much overhauled or updated.
Yeah, I think that base features have been there, like Lane Assistant has been there for a long time. But to make it really always suitable for all the situations, that's something that happened now.
How did you get into Škoda design team? What was your path?
That's an interesting question because I originally didn't start off as a transportation designer, which would, let's say, be the usual way how to become part of a OEM design team. I studied textile development, so I'm a textile design engineer. Studied this in Germany and finished with a master studies, and then I got hired from Austrian textile supplier, and we were preparing specialized for automotive seating. And there I got introduced to Škoda design team, and that was the time when I was developing seating materials, standing at the loom, basically on the other side. And so I got to know the Škoda design colleagues, and at some point there was a position open, and applied because I found this was a very sympathetic team and a nice surrounding, and great working place.
So the textiles are basically your expertise.
And,
But do you also work with different kinds of materials, like plastics and stuff like that?
Yeah. So the more projects I work on, the more insights you also get into other technologies. And I'm also working on Indian projects, and there I'm looking more into the plastics, like also effect plastic, about the small particles we talked before, and paint. There's different paint systems, many different layers. Interior paint is a bit different than exterior paint. So I'm also able, I gained some experience with exterior paint as well. And so slowly, you're also merging into other fields, and then you can combine all these experiences and ideas and melt them somehow and melt them into a concept for one car. Right. This is quite a nice process. Yeah. So we're like influencing each other in the office.
But I assume that's not really what you studied. You studied something completely different, I guess.
Yeah, I studied these textile design studies are mainly focused on fashion and also for home furnishing. Sure. I did during the studies, I did one internship in fashion industry, and I didn't, collect the nice experiences there. So I decided to try some other industry as well, just to see if it's similar or different, if I find something which is more suitable for me. And I never regretted stepping into automotive industry. That's a nice field of work.
We are here finally with the cars. This is the facelifted Scala. As you can see, it has redesigned backlights and rear bumper. Both the Scala and the Kamiq that we have here are in the Monte Carlo version. The Scala is a bit more sportier, I guess. If you're familiar with the previous version of Scala, you might notice that the front grille has been redesigned and it actually got a little bigger. The front headlights got smaller and more sportier, and the front bumper has been redesigned as well. But you've been doing this for a while, and you might have some, insight on where this whole field is going. What should we expect as customers in terms of design and interiors and different materials?
Yeah, so the car itself is consisting of so many small pieces, and every supplier, there's like single supplier, you're sourcing every time this one supplier, and to have this sustainable approach for the full car, it's really difficult because it's consisting of so many, right, sub-suppliers and processes, and to get them all on board and to build a car which is itself easy to repair, easy to recycle, and still has this quality approach. I think that's the big challenge of the future. Yeah. Besides self-driving and good HMI, that's from material point of view, that's a big adventure. Yeah.
Is there some kind of like restriction on material that you can use inside of the car, maybe even outside in terms of like safety or regulations?
Yeah, the big concern regarding these recycled materials is that they are like low quality and that it's difficult to control each of these plastic batches coming from you don't know where sometimes. And so in the beginning, there was big concerns from our construction colleagues if these recycled plastics are really fulfilling all the standards. But we, with a quality supplier and some checking on the chain, on the supply chain, you can ensure these things. So if you're asking about restrictions, especially also for the exterior, that's a big thing. And then on the interior, you also have these airbag tests, seam opening, and materials have to, fulfill the same tests and standards. So, for example, there's a test for seat materials where you're like rubbing in circles over the surface, and then the amount of circles is being counted, and you have to like end up at 30 to 50,000 circles. So, and then, the specialist in the laboratory is checking if just one single thread is broken. And if the single thread is broken, the material, you cannot use it for the interior.
Oh, really? That's
so it's
strict?
Yeah, it's quite strict, yeah.
Okay.
Also, light fastening, if the material is turning yellow in sun and so on. This is not, this is quite difficult to catch sometimes. I would say that maybe 50% of the new materials we are trying, they are being kicked out in laboratory. And then we have to try once more. And then maybe 5 years later, it's there. Yeah, because the supplier did some modifications or you got some great hack to implement it. But it's not always like this. It's not always easy.
Right. And this question might be going back to the recycled materials, but let's say you kind of come up with like a new version of material or something that you would like to use, and you go to the supplier and they develop it for you. Is it something that you have to, like someone from Škoda team has to go there, work with the supplier maybe to figure out how to do it, or is it something that you guys do or they do and then you combine stuff, knowledge?
Yeah, it's a common approach. Yeah, so supplier is always trying to work on things which we potentially want to implement.
Okay.
They are also working on their own ideas on the side, always, like cooking on slow flame. But if they don't know that we are really interested in, they are not putting too much time on it. Yeah, so we say what we are looking for, what we are expecting, and then in the best case, there's something in the early stage and where we can keep on working together. We're also working some very interesting textile recycled options at the moment. Cannot talk about it right now too much, but will be revealed soon next year. But there I was working with a colleague I got to know in the university still. And I was, let's say, part of his first trials on these innovative materials. And this is really nice, journey. And this was maybe 8 years ago. And now I can see that 8 years later, he's ready to implement this into automotive industry.
That's still pretty difficult, huh? It's like you have to work on something for so many years, and you have to tell the supplier what way you want to go, but it takes years to get there. And it's not really, it's probably really difficult to design cars like that.
It's a process. You can be part of this for longer. It's for sure not like kids, but it's quite a big part of the life, though. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been great. Thank you very much, and best of luck.
Thank you.